అందరికీ నమస్కారములు. Today is the third day of our classes on Darshanas. We are covering the Astik Darshanas so far, last 2 days. One is we had the introduction, and also we had Sankhya Darshana and Yoga Darshana in the first day. Yesterday we had Nyaya Darshana, and now we are going to have, I think, Vaisesika Darshana from Dr. CSR Prabhu garu. So let us start the session with Vande Mataram by Hemalata garu. After that, Prarthana by Lalita Kishore garu. So Hemalata garu.
Yes, sir. Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram, Sujalam Sufalam, Malayaj Sitalam, Sasya Syamalam Mataram, Vande Mataram, Subrajyotsna Pulakitayabini, Pullakusumita Drumadala Sobhini, Suhasini Sumadurabashini, Sukhadam Varadam Mataram, Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram. ధన్యవాదాలు.
Vande Mataram. Now I request Lalita Kishore ji to chant Prarthana, please.
Excuse me, Colonel ji, it is Padma Kummi ji is prayer.
Let Lalita Kishore do.
Okay.
गणानां त्वा गणपतिगुं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपवस्त्रवस्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणान् ब्रह्मणस्पद आनशृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनं श्रीमहागणाधिपतये नमः। ॐ प्रणो देवी सरस्वती वाजेभिर्वाजिनीवती धीनामवित्रियवतु। ॐ श्री महासरस्वत्यै नमः। गुरुरेव गतिः गुरुमेव भजे गुरुणैव सहास्मि नमो गुरवे। न गुरोः परमं शिशुरस्मि गुरोः मतिरस्ति गुरौ मम पाहि गुरो। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां हयग्रीवमुपास्महे। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतंगमय। ओम शांति शांति शांति। मातृदेवो भव पितृदेवो भव आचार्य देवो भव अतिथि देवो भव। ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम शांति शांति शांतिः हरि ओम
ధన్యవాదములండి లలిత కిషోర్ గారు. Actually, I request all of you to come well in time, preferably 6:25, so that we can start the session in time. So today we had to look for the chanters and the reciters. So end recitation we will have from Padma Komi and chanting. Okay. So
Okay, Karnalji.
now I request our Guruji CSR Prabhu Garu to continue the webinar, please.
Om Namo Brahmavibhyo Brahmavidya Sampadayakabhyo Vamsarishibhyo Mahakyo Namo Gurubhyaha Sarvopaplavadahita Prajnana Pratyagarbho Sohamasti Brahmena. Okay, friends, yesterday we have seen the Nyaya Darshana, which is basic logic, the procedures of argumentation, including the procedures of proof, statement, which can be examined in terms of various types of proof, Pratyaksha, Anumana, Agama, Upamana, Tapatti, and so on. So these were the Nyaya Padardhas, or the substances of logic or justice or proof. So any knowledge, if it cannot be proven, it has no validity. So please remember, even in the field of religion or in the field of science or in any field, if we are not able to prove something with any one of the methods of proof, it has no validity. So when you apply that same methodology to any subject, you will get the Shastra and the Darshana of that subject. Create. So knowledge creation can be done if you apply the research methodology of argumentation proof to any statement in any subject. So that is how knowledge creation takes place. As you know, now among the 6 darshanas, the Vaisesika darshana is codified as sutras, Vaisesika sutras by Kanada Rishi. Nyaya sutras was by Gautama Rishi, and Mimamsa sutras by Jaimini, and Vedanta sutras by Badaraya. And we already know that Yoga sutras by Patanjali and Sankhya sutras by Kapil. So the Vaisesika darshana, which comprises the Vaisesika sutras and many other books, is one of the 6 Astika darshanas. Now I am going to follow this book. It is authored by myself after 15 years of struggle, published by Vedic University in Tirupati. You can always procure this book and read it. It's a very small book. It's very low cost. And this foreword to this book was written by Subhash Kak, a very famous professor, USA. So I now read out the introduction of this book, which is the introduction to Vaisesika Sutras. The title of this book is The Physics of Vaisesika. The Physics of Vaisesika. Vaisesika of Kannada, one of the 6 schools of Indian philosophical thought. The other 5 being Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Mimamsa, and Vedanta. The Vaisesika Sutras, Vaisesika Darshana, concerns itself with the physical reality. Each of the other darshanas concern themselves with other perspectives of their psychological perspective, logical perspective. So this is Vaisesika is limited to physical perspective. It deals with the characteristics of physical entities and substances, their properties, their interactions with each other, including the forces and motions of various types. Vaisesika is called Padartha Shastra, Padartha Vijnana, or the science of substances or material entities. It concerns itself with the modeling of the physical world in terms of its own laws of fundamental physical entities, physical behavior, finally culminating in the atomic theory of the universe. So the atomic theory of the universe was first propounded by Kanad Rishi in this Vaisesika Sutra. That's why the diagram here is also an atom. Of course, he was not proposing the structure of the atom, but he just proposed the atomic theory. Of course, there is also a dispute whether he proposed the atomic theory or a particular theory, because by his definition, the indivisible entity is atom. Actually, indivisible entity is a particle. So he might have proposed particle theory, but we don't know. But he has proposed a final single unit which cannot be divided further as that. As basic physics, Vaisesika formed the foundation of ancient applied sciences such as Ayurveda and Shilpa Shastra. Shilpa Shastra is nothing but engineering. Vastu Shastra is nothing but civil engineering. Ayurveda is nothing but medicine. Modern science or Western science, originating in Europe during 17th century, comprises many branches. Among the large number of branches of science, physics is commonly identified as the most exact. Physics is the study of the physical world in all its forms and manifestations. Physics depends largely on mathematics as a tool for analysis. The quantitative aspects of the physical world are expressed in mathematical form, thereby enabling physics to describe the physical phenomena in the most exact manner. I'm sure all of you have studied physics. So I have only told what is physics. Thus, physics is the most exact of all the sciences. Which are the other sciences? Chemistry, biology. And so mathematics is not a science, it's a tool for science. I'm not saying it is not scientific, it is most logical and most precise methodology. But by itself is not considered as science, but the tool of science. And physics is the exact science because mathematics is utilized in physics to the maximum extent, whereas in chemistry or in biology, very little mathematics, sometimes there, but compared to physics, the deployment of mathematical techniques is very, very less. I won't say absent, but less. Physics deals with the most fundamental entities of the physical world. So in the classical physics, we have matter, we have energy, we have space, and we have time. And matter is comprised of molecules, atoms, course, the classical physics, the old atomic theory of Dalton, you might have read the Dalton's atomic theory, 18th, 19th century. That was also indivisible atom. By definition, the atom was indivisible. But later on, 1950s, 1956 or so, Rutherford's planetary model of the atom came, structure of the atom. So until the planetary model of the atom came, historically, the atom was the smallest indivisible entity. Same definition was given by Kanada as an indivisible entity, being the atom. Anu. And even in the Veda, we have references to Anu, Raniyan, Mahatu, Maniyan. And even you have the word Paramanu also. Whether they are referring to atom or particle is still not known, but the indivisible entity is important. While the Vedas contain knowledge of all subjects, the Vaisesika is the branch of knowledge or Veda corresponding to the physical world in the ancient times. Just as today we have physics, in the ancient times, till the English-based Western science replaced the study, pedagogy, education system. The ancient education system, knowledge system, pedagogy comprised of Vaisesika as the equivalent position of physics. Vaisesika Darshana is the oldest known text of science which deals with physical world. In other words, physics. Physics is the science of the physical world of the modern times, and Vaisesika Darshana is the science of the physical world of the ancient. Both physics and Vaisesika Darshana have a single common interest, that is the physical world. So that means Vaisesika Darshana and physics both are targeting to understand and explain the physical world, the constituent entities of the physical world, their qualities or properties and their interactions, including force and motion. These are the subjects common to physics on one hand and the Vaisesika Darshana on the other. So the title of this book, Physics of Vaisesika, indicates that this book concerns itself with those aspects of Vaisesika system which are concerned with the science of the physical world. That is nothing but physics. So as the first step in the development of any science, the identification of fundamental categories, Vaisesika Sutras of Kanada model the physical reality in terms of 6 fundamental categories or substances. Vaisesika Padarthas, whereas Nyaya Padarthas were only the procedures of ascertainment of validity or truth. The Vaisesika Padarthas are material, dravyas, physical substances in their atomic form, and gunas, their properties, karma, the motions. Here the word karma, Vaisesika, means motion, not fate, along with the associated fundamental abstractions of samanya, generalization, vishesha, specialization, and samavaya, inherence. So these are the 6 Shat Padarthas. It's called Shat Padarth Shastra, Shat Padarth Vidya. Later on, one more Padartha was added, that is called Abhava, non-existence. And even some more categories were added by later scholars. We'll now look into who did what. So in this book, the 5 chapters, the Vaisesika's view of the physical world is brought out in this book very clearly. It comprises the, of course, Vaisesika Sutras contain 10 chapters, but I have covered only 5 chapters which belong to the physical domain. And for 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, I gave the summary of only the essential sutras which are referring to physical domain. Because Vaisesika refers to non-physical domain also in some of the chapters. So I dropped those from this book. That's why the title book is The Physics of Vaisesika. It's enormously popular. Thousands of copies have been read all over the world. You can also procure it on your own and read it. So the fundamental entities of matter, energy, space, and time are described in Vaisesika Sutras, and also their interactions through various forces of gravitation, electricity, magnetism are also described. Various types of motions, upward, downward, contraction, expansion, transmission. All these have been referred and defined and described. And Vaisesika models the physical world in terms of the eternal atoms which have no death. Sat is called Sat, as the ultimate building blocks of universe. So the same theory of Vaisesika, coming right from Kanada Rishi, who may be around 1000 BC or 2000, we don't know exactly. It continued till John Dalton's theory of atomic theory, Western world, which is studied in our school books till the 18th century or even 19th century. Till the Rutherford's planetary model came in 1956. While historians of science were generally unaware, as you know, a big fraudulent behavior of historians of science, not to give any credit to India in any of the achievements. That is a British scam, conspiracy. So they just don't recognize any contribution of India in any field. Historians of science were generally unaware of the contributions of ancient India to physics. Historically, Vaisesika was merged quite unfairly with Nyaya, which is itself a big Anyaya. While it is true that they both go together and have a lot in common, the common factors are the procedures of logic, the application of the procedures of logical analysis to ascertain the truth. Yet they are independent because Vaisesika, or the physics of the ancient world, had its own independent exclusive status, which has been sometimes denied by the logicians, especially in the Middle Ages, while Nyaya concerns itself with the epistemology or the earls of acquisition of valid knowledge. Vaisesika concerns itself with the ontological aspects, not the procedures, but the structure or the constituents of the universe. Sankhya also deals with the fundamental categories as they arise in the space of mind, and therefore has some correspondence with Vaisesika. But Vaisesika is the first of the 6 darshanas which recognizes the acceptance, recognizes and accepts the material substances in the outside world. In Sankhya, there is no reference to any material substance. Dravya is not there. Only the tanmatras, the 5 senses, give rise to 5 types of sensations. The sensations that arise in the mind out of the 5 senses, they are identified to the 5 Panchabhutas, and that's the end of the story. The Sankhya, there is no recognition of an external substance in the universe. Whereas in Vaisesika, a substance is not only recognized, but it's categorized, described in detail, and not only its own properties, but also its interactions, including force, energy, motion, and so on. The Vaisesika Sutras of Kannada are of very great antiquity of period, of very, very remote time, belonging to the post-Vedic but pre-Puranic age, what is usually known as the Sutra period. Its extant commentaries, that means most of the things are lost. But whatever is there belong to a period of recent knowledge, the last 2000 years. So even though the time period of Kannada's Vaisesika Sutras is not known with certainty, the Chinese tradition describes Kannada being of greater antiquity of at least 1 millennium, that means 1000 years before Buddha. The old date of Buddha is 500 BC. So Kannada is at least 1500 BC as per the old dating. But the new dating of Buddha is going to 1900 BC. So that means Kannada can be put around 2900 or 3000 BC. Unfortunately, the series of successive commentaries of the earlier periods are not available to any one of us anymore. They are all lost, destroyed, or extinct. There was a large time interval between the original Vaisesika Sutras of Kannada and the commentaries on it, starting with Prashastapada, estimated at 5th century AD, who also had names as Prashastamati, Prashastadeva, Prashastakara Deva, while we lost most of the early commentaries, including one Kartandi, one Vritti by Bharadwaja, and one commentary by Ravana. We don't know if it's the same Ravana or another Ravana. The earliest text we have with us today is Prashastapada's own text, known as Padartha Dharma Sangha. This text is not exactly a commentary to the Vaisesika Sutras of Kannada, but it has its own independent status as a respectable text on Vaisesika, with significant amount of Puranic orientation, because by the time of Prashastapada, the Puranic perspectives of the Vedic knowledge have already emerged in a big way. Prashastapada also wrote a different text, which was the actual commentary to the Vaisesika Sutras. And that text was known as Bhashya, Vakya, or Tika, which is not available today. Therefore, we are forced to depend upon the existing text Padartha Dharma Sangha, which I depended upon. After Prashastapada, the commentaries on Vaisesika are found from the 4 recent periods of time within 1000 years. Kiranavali of King Udayana. Yesterday also we referred to Udayana's works on Nyaya Shastra. He also wrote a book called Kiranavali on Vaisesika Sutras. That is a commentary to Prashastapada's book. And Upaskara of Shankar Mishra of early 15th century AD is a commentary to Vaisesika Sutras with a heavy dependence on Prashastapada. Atreya wrote a Bhashya to Vaisesika Sutras, where the critique was given by Vadiraja. Vadiraja is a well-known Madhva, I think, Peethadipati. Most, if not all, the works and even references to Vaisesika are traceable to scholars of Nyaya. Prominent of them being Prabhakara. We have a whole school of Prabhakara Nyaya, Atta school, Jayadatta, Annambhatta. Annambhatta wrote Tarka Sangraha, which is a very famous book. It is used even today. There he integrated Vaisesika with Nyaya. Mallavadi, Murari Mishra, Chakradhara, Simhasuri, Sri Vallabha, Raghurama, Jayarama, Venidatta, and Ujjotaka. Some of them had access. Unlike us, today we don't have those texts, but they had access to some of the last ancient commentaries, such as Kartandi and Vakya. For example, Udayana refers in his Kiranavali to a Vaisesika Bhashya as being very extensive, and the same is ascribed to Ravana, as per Padmanabha Mishra, 16th century, in his own book, Kiranavali Bhashya. None of the commentaries post Prashastapada attempted a physics-based method. This is a very important point. So that's why I told that my book is the first time in the last 5,000 years. None of the commentaries post Prashastapada attempted a physics-based interpretation of the Vaisesika Sutras, as they were too clouded and too dominated by the Nyaya logic. Prashasthapada, who is the oldest of the commentators available today, is held with high regard as the first known commentator next to Bharadwaja and Ravana, whose work Padartha Dharma Sangraha is presently available and is considered as a standard reference text on Vaisesika. Dashapadartha Shastra of Chandramati was an ancient text of Vaisesika and was also translated to Chinese by Yuan Sa during 648 AD. Thus, the origins of physics can be traced back to the Vaisesika Sutras of Kannada of very great antiquity of several millennia BC, and also later to Padartha Dharma Sangraha of Prashasthapada of 5th century. All the other available commentaries are of more recent origin, only a few centuries, like Upaskara of Shankar Mishra in 15th century and Setu of Padmanabha Mishra in 16th century. All these texts have been studied all through the history. Please note this. All these texts have been studied all through the history in the traditional academic curricula, along with Nyaya logic. Nyaya Vaisesika was a pair. However, all of them belong to a time period several centuries before the modern advent of Western science and the first formal discussions of classical physics in the West, that is in 18th century. Now, I'll refer to the unitary view of the physical reality. The Indian philosophical, that is Advaita model. The Indian philosophical models of physical reality went much beyond the perspective of classical physics. Because classical physics categorized the universe into four substances: matter, energy, space, and time. Advaita, which is non-duality, unitary, singular perspective, based on the Upanishads. We have seen how in the Mandukya Upanishad, the Advaita was declared, presents a unitary view of the physical reality. According to Advaita, Brahman, or the unknowable absolute reality, is the essence of existence, whose apparent modifications are the multifarious world, and due to Maya, multiplicity appears. So in quantum mechanics, the nature of the physical world as expressed in Schrodinger's wave equation is described to be the expression of Maya as stated by Schrodinger himself. The relativity of space and time as expressed in Indian philosophical system can be shown as a parallel thought to the theory of relativity of Einstein. The classical physical model of the four fundamental entities, matter, energy, space, and time, gets fundamentally transformed in the modern physics. In the context of relativity theory, space and time become zero if you travel at the velocity of light. Then the factor given root of 1 minus b square by c square. If b is equal to c, that factor will become 0. And if b is less than c, proportionately, space and time will be reduced. And if b is greater than c, it will be an imaginary number and time will go backward. When the observer travels at velocity of light, both space and time become 0. Thus, they don't have absolute existence. Thus, we have to reduce the four absolute fundamental entities to only two, matter and energy. So, matter and energy are considered independent in classical physics, but became interconvertible and philosophically single in modern physics in the theory of relativity, with the famous equation E is equal to mc square. This equation demonstrates the unitary and interconvertible nature of matter and energy. Thus, when we ask the question, what is the final and one single fundamental absolute reality? The answer could be one which becomes many with all different forms of matter and different forms of energy. And this one was explained as Brahman in Advaita Vedanta of the Upanishads. The parallelism between one Brahman of Upanishads, which manifests as the universe, and one absolute reality, which manifests are all forms of matter and all forms of energy in the universe, in the physics cannot be missed. So Brahman and that which is both matter and energy, X, both are one and the same. In a way, the same truth is expressed by both schools of thought, Advaita and modern physics. So in Vaisesika Sutras of Kannada, this unitary view, unity, comes out as a Sat, equivalent of Brahman in Vedanta, which is the essence of all existence in the atomic form. And knowing and understanding that one Sat results in liberation or moksha or nishreyas. The observer of modern physics was identified as Atman, as a substance in the Vaisesika. In this book, an attempt has been made. To unearth and demonstrate the evidence of awareness and knowledge of the basic principles of physics, including the atomic theory, in the Vaisesika Sutras of Kannada, whose antiquity is unassailable, taken around 1000 years before Buddha, and is well known to have large precedence over the Western sources of physics, including the recent sources of 18th, 19th centuries, and also the ancient Greek sources of 4th century BC, because this is going back to at least 1500 to 3000 between that period BC. So we are talking of a solid 1000 years before the Greek science of physics with the atomic theory of Demetrius originated. It is hoped that this endeavor will enable a better assessment and appreciation of the hallowed tradition of ancient Indian science. So this is the introduction to this book, The Physics of Vaisesika. Now I'll delve deeper into the subject matter itself of the Vaisesika Sutras. So the very first sutra of Vaisesika Darshana or Vaisesika Sutras of Kannada, Adhato Dharma Vyakhyasya. Now we shall comment on Dharma. Yato Abhyudaya Nishreyasya Dharma. The second sutra, Dharma is that which will result in both Abhyudaya and Nishreyas, progress and freedom, well-being, highest good. So as you can see today, all the countries like Russia, America, Israel, are very, very highly advanced in science and technology. There is no depth of progress, but there is no peace, there is no happiness, there is no welfare, there is no freedom. Inside the minds or outside, and the reason is they have never bothered about dharma, understand dharma, accept the law itself. Yesterday, in fact, as some of you might have attended, there was an international day of values, by one values awareness, and I was invited to speak on Dharma Yoga as a common framework for all religions and science. So Dharma is nothing but a set of values, values which ensure sustainability, both in terms of physical sustainability and psychological, spiritual sustainability, and continuity and permanence. So I developed a framework called Dharma Yoga, which is a common framework, acceptable to every single religion, including the dharmic religions of Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and also the Abrahamic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, in addition to other religions like any other modern religion, in addition to theism, agnosticism, skepticism, communism, socialism, all of them have accepted values which are being explained in the Dharma Yoga framework. Around 18 values are demonstrated. So if those values are adopted, are adhered to, then we can hope to have world peace, unlike what is the situation. So this is what is the import of this sutra. Yato abhidaya nishre siddhi sadharma tadvachana damna yasya pramanyam. Being the dharma vachana, being the statement declaration of dharma, the Veda gets pramanyata. Veda proclaims dharma. Therefore, Veda is to be relied upon. So this statement of definition of Veda makes the Vaisesika Darshana an Astika. Dharma Vishesha Prasuta, Dravya Guna. I strongly suggest you read this book because I am not covering in a formal way today in the short period of time we have. Formally, every word has to be broken up and explained the meaning. All that is done in this book. In this book, we have the word-to-word meaning and total translation, as well as additionally commentaries given separately. So you can see how the words are and how the commentary by me, based on Prashastapada, Siddhartha Dharma Sangraha, not on any other Nyaya book. I was advised by one very famous Professor Priyali Palit of Jadavpur University not to waste my time in depending upon the Nyaya texts, which are going tangential. They go away from the physical meaning. And by virtue of my knowledge of physics, I was selected as a science talent search scholar of physics, though I studied later electronics, which is also branch of physics, and communications. And then I, of course, studied computer science. So, with that knowledge of physics, which is adequate, because I studied it even in electronics course. All of you must have studied. Dharma Vishesha Prasuda, Dravya Guna Karma Samanya Visesh Samayanam Padarthanam Sadharma Vaidharma Abhyam Tattva Jnana Nishrayasa. So moksha, Nishrayasa, highest good, the well-being can be achieved according to Vaisesika by the understanding of the true nature of Dravya, substance, guna, attributes, qualities, karma, motions, and relationships such as generalization, specialization, samanya, vishesha, samavaya, inherence of the substance. By understanding these 6 Vaiseshika Padarthas, substances of Vaiseshika, and their similarities and dissimilarities, sadharmya, vaidharmya, tattvajnana, by the acquiring of tattvajnana of the vaidharmya, sadharmya, vaidharmya of Dravya Guna Karma Samanya Visesh Samaya, you will be getting moksha. In other words, by understanding physics, you will get moksha. This is what Vaiseshika Kanada is saying. No other physicists said it. Other physicists don't have an idea of what is moksha. So, dravyas, what are dravyas? Prithvi, Apas, Tejo, Vayu, Akash, Kala, Mana, Atma, iti dravya. 9 dravyas are there. Prithvi, Prithvi means not just this earth alone. It is matter, solid state, or it can be something even more unique. Prithvi is Prithvi. I have interpreted in different ways what is Prithvi, what is Vayu, and so on. Apa, Teja. Teja is energy, Agni, different forms of energy. Akasha is ether, and Dik is directional space, Cartesian space. Kala is time, and Atma is self, the observer. And Manas is also there. The Atma doesn't have the Mana, cannot observe. Both should be there. These are the dravyas, 9 dravyas. So when you try to understand each one of them, their qualities are being described. Rupa. And what are the qualities? Total qualities: Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, Sparshaha, Sankhyaha, Parimanani, Prithakvam, Samyoga, Vibhago, Paratva, Aparatve, Budhayaha, Sukha Dukkham, Ichha, Dvesho, Prayatnascha, Guna. These gunas or these qualities are these. What are they? Rupa, form, rasa, taste, gandha, smell, sparsha, touch, sankhya, counting, numbers, parimana, measures, prithakvam, differentiability, samyoga vibhago, conjunction and division, disjunction, paratva, aparatve, previousness and nextness, buddhi, sukha dukkhas, ichadveshas, and prayatnas. Of course, sukha dukkha, ichadvesha are the linga of the Atman, as we saw yesterday, not about the substances. Prithvi, Apa don't have sukha dukkha, so the Atman has. Prayatna. These are the gunas. So the first 11 are the physical gunas, physical substances. The last 6 are the qualities of the mind and self. Mind and self also have been considered as dravyas or entities and have qualities as mentioned. The last 6 qualities. What are they? Buddhaya, sukha dukkhe, ichhadvesho, prayatna. Utkshepanam, avakshepanam, akunjanam, prasaranam, gamanam. These are the 5 types of motion. Upward, downward, contraction, transmission, and simple motion. And in simple motion, general motion, gamana, grahana, gamana, rechana, syandana, urtha, dvarana, tiryak patana, manana, unmanadayaha, gamana, visesha. Prashastapada added a comment saying that in various special categories of general motion are gamana, rotation, revolution, and rechana, expulsion, spandana, beat, like heartbeat, jalana, upward burning of flame, and tiryak patana, like natural fall, free fall of objects. Namana, unmana, bending and forward and upward. And of course, beat, you have already considered. These are the gamana visesha, specialized motions of general motion. And next, sad anityam dravya karanam samanya visesha, dravya guna karanam visesha. Now, what is visesha? What is samanya? General properties. Dravya gunayo sajatiya arambhagatvam sadharmyam. Dravyani dravyantaram arambhante gunasya gunantaram. Karma sadhyam na vidyate. Now there is a law of conservation of matter. The dravyam karyam karanancha vadhati. No material entity or substance destroys or kills its own effect and cause. So no material entity or substance can destroy its own cause or its effect. In other words, material entity or substance is conserved. This law of conservation of matter, a substance cannot be the cause of its own destruction. Some other cause should exist. And the impossibility of perpetual motion. Karya virodhi karma. Motion is the enemy of motion. Motion is the enemy of its own effects of motion. Motion destroys motion. In other words, motion will halt when it is executed after motion is completed. There is a complete halt. The body will come to a standstill. It is being stated here that any motion will come to an end if the perpetual motion is not possible, because it is indirectly interpreting existence of friction, not permitting perpetual motion. What are the properties of substances? Kriya gunavat samavayi karanamiti dravya lakshana. The lakshana of dravya is it has motion, it has properties, and it is the cause of inherence. Samavayi karanam. Inherent properties will exist. The characteristics of material substance or dravya are to having motion, having qualities, and being the cause of inherence of qualities and motions, or being a cause with inherent and motion qualities. Properties of a quality. Dravyasya gunavan. Samyoga vibhageshu akaranam. anapeksha iti gunalakshana. The characteristics of quality are being dependent on the material substance, being not a cause of conjunction and disjunction. You see the formalism with which every single thing is being defined. Even in modern science, we never define what is substance, what is quality, what is motion. Now, motion is being defined. Ekadravyam, agunam. Motion is that which is in a single substance and has no qualities. Samyoga vibhageshu anapeksha karanam. And it is unaffected cause, both in conjunction and disjunction. Dravya guna karmanam, dravyam karanam samanya. For all the three, the cause is dravya. If there is no dravya, there is no guna, there is no karma. So, then he defines dravyanam, dravyam, karyam, samanyam. So various dravyas have the commonness of dravyata, and the dravyas include the self. That means he has identified the self and manas as substance as much as the dviyapar. Vitva prabhuteha sankhya pratakta samyoga vibhagashcha. So starting with 2, 1 is not considered as a number, but beyond 1 are considered as sankhyas, numbers, up to infinity. There is also differentiability, conjunction, disjunction. And now the law of motion, first law of motion, inertia. Asamavayat samanya karyam karmana vidyate. Due to not being inherent, motion does not exist as a generalized effect always. Motion is not necessarily inherent in a substance. If it is inherent, samavaya, being asamavaya, motion cannot take place. It has to be caused. There has to be, that is inertia, is referring to inertia. Samyoganam dravyam, rupanam rupam, the upward motion. Gurutva prayatna samyogat ukshepanam. With the conjunction of gurutva, that is gravitation, and prayatna, that is external effort, which resulted in a force, there will be upward motion. He has recognized that gravitation is pulling down, and force against that will be pushing you up for upward motion. The causality principle, karana bhavat karya. There cannot be any effect without a cause. So this is the bedrock of scientific temper. So my claim that Sanatana Dharma is scientific is more than established by this very statement, karana bhavat karya bhava. There cannot be an effect without a cause. Not a karya bhavat karana, but there can be a karana, a cause without an effect. And what is generalization? Samanyam vishesheti buddhyapeksha. Both generalization and specialization are conclusions by the intellect, by buddhi. Bhava anuvrittereva hetutvat samanyameva. The notion of existence is only a generalization. The grasp of the intellect being cause. Dravyatvam, gunatvam, karmatvam cha samanyani visheshas. They are general as well as specialized. Now I am explaining the tree hierarchy, class hierarchy. Anyatra antyabhyo visheshebhya. Accepting the specialization instances at the end of the class hierarchy. All other parts of the class hierarchy are generalization and specialization. And we know in computer science today we use object hierarchies, generalization and specialization. Suppose you have a classification of human being, person. A person is the super type in the object type classification. And then you have subtypes as adult, child. And then adults can be classified into male and female. A child also male and female. So then male and females will be classified further into various states like students, teachers, employees. Students can be further classified into arts, science student, engineering student, medical students. And finally, in engineering branch, we have electronics branch, computer science branch. So it's a big tree of hierarchy. And finally, what happens? There's a particular student, CSR Prabhu, roll number 760114 something, and so college in IIT Bombay, and so and so year 1976 to 78 in tech. So that is the instance of the object. That's what is the end. Antya. Antya. Anyatra antyebhyo visheshebhyaha. That is accepting the instances at the end of the class hierarchy. All others are part of the generalization. Bottom to top is specialization, top to bottom is, top to bottom is specialization, bottom to top is generalization. And what is existence? Saditi yato dravya guna karmasu sa satta. Existence from which the notion of perception that this existence exists among material entities or substances is called existence. Dravya guna karmebhyo ardhantaram satta. The notion of existence exists independently or separately from all the three dravya guna karma. Guna karma sisha bhavascha karma na guna, and so on like this. Very deep, threadbare analysis of the physical phenomenon. And one existence finally. Saditi linga vishesha, vishesha linga bhavacha eko bhava. The notion of perception of existence exists also as one existence due to itself being a special indicator due to the absence of any other special indicator. So if you apply this notion of existence in Vaisesika, the atomic model of the universe, and this application of the above sutras is being done in modern times in systems theory, in perception theory, in artificial intelligence and robotics. Now in chapter 2, we have completed chapter 1. In chapter 2, it describes the attributes of various dravyas, rupa, rasa, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha, sparshavati, prithvi. So prithvi has all the 5, rupa, rasa, gandha, sparsha, all the 4. Whereas apa has only rupa, rasa, sparshavaha, apaho, dravya. Only rupa, rasa and sparsha. And tejo, rupa, sparshavat. Tejas has only 2, rupa and sparsha. And vayu has only 1, sparshavan vayuhu. And all of them are missing in akasha. Te akashe navidyante. Now, sir, the change of state is being expressed. Sarpi jatu madhuchishtanam akti samyoga dravatvam atti samanyam. Generalized property of all solid substances with examples as ghee, solid ghee, or honeycomb, or lac. When heated, they become liquefied, liquidity. So when will that happen? Agni samyoga, conjunction with energy, Agni. So this is an indication of understanding of change of state. Prabhu sees aloha rajata suvarnanam Agni samyoga dravatvam atti samanyam. So another property of liquidity is that heat is applied to various metals like tin, lead, iron, silver, gold. So you can see they were familiar with the change of state and skipping many of them because it will take a long time to go each and every sutra. A very, very deep threadbare analysis. About time. Time is defined. Of course, the attributes of Tejas. Tejas are Ushnata, Apsu Sitata, time, Aparasmin, Atraparam, Yugapat, Chiram, Kshipramiti, Kala, Lingani. What are the indications of time? The indicative characteristics of time are, in the later time, we use the word later, previous, posterior, together, Yugapat, two events happen together. Two twins are born together simultaneously or long time later. These kind of thoughts we have been using, and fast and slow. And space, idamiti, yatastad dishyam lingam. Akasha, space are two different things. Akasha is ether, and space is being defined as directional space, Cartesian space. From here, this till there. So the Descartes, who gave the Cartesian space, belonged to a period of several thousand years later, Vaisesika. You can credit Vaisesika and its predecessors such as the Vedas for the original and first definitions of time, space, matter, and energy. As Vaisesika is only a darshan of Vedas. And now directions, various directions. That is the Cartesian space. Now I'll go to third chapter. Prasiddha Indriyartha. Third chapter part. Atmendriya Artha Sannikarshe Jnanasya Bhavo Abhavasya Manaso Lingam. Manas. What is the indicative evidence of the existence of Manas? Atmendriya Artha Sannikarshe. The existence and non-existence of knowledge arising in conjunction of self with senses. One side we have the senses, the other side we have the self. And by conjunction between the senses and self, there is an acquisition of knowledge, awareness. How it is being generated? It is being generated only because the mind exists. Now, Atma, how can you say Atma exists? Like, first thing is, you exist. Nobody can say, I don't exist. Prana, apana, nimesha, unmeshana. You are breathing in and out. You are lifting, your eyelids are going up and down. Jivana, manogati, mind is moving. Indriyantar vikaraha, sukha dukkhayoh, ichha dvesha, prayatna, all these are Atmana Lingam. The indicative characteristics of self are inhalation, exhalation, closing and opening of the eyelids, existence of life, movement of mind, changes or modification of the various senses, pleasure and pain, desire and hatred. We are talking of the Jivatma, we are not talking of Paramatma here. Jivatma has all these attributes. There are a number of objections raised on the existence of Atman. They are being demolished one by one. So, all possible objections of the existence of self. And finally, the assertion, ahamiti pratyagatmani. Pratyak, that means you are able to experience aham, I. Bhava, that existence, that exists, the feeling of I-ness exists. Paratra abhava, it exists only for you and not for somebody else. Ardhantara pratyakshaha, the feeling of I is found to exist in the self, which is directly perceivable or can be experienced as I and not the body and not elsewhere. So we all know that the feeling of I is not the body itself, but a separate feeling. Therefore, the self exists. He is giving an indicative proof for that. And many objections are also being contradicted. And finally, also the issue of how many Atmans are there? Only one or many. Yavasthito Nana. In practice, in practical life, we have many. Shastra Samadhyacha. So even by the Shastra, it's possible to establish many. But this is in the chapter 3, but later in chapter 7, he proves that even though in practice the self is in many instances, ultimately it is only one. The tattva, the nature of the self is only one. He proves it in chapter 7. The nature is only one, though in practice multiple selves exist. Then in chapter 4, the atomic theory is given. Sadakaravat Nityam, existence, which has no cause or causeless, is eternal and permanent. Sat or existence is eternal and permanent, it has no cause. Then there will be a lot of objections that should be overcome. And finally, the indivisible atoms are being established. Motion, chapter 5 deals with motion. Atma Indriya Sannika. Atma Samyoga Prayatnabhyam Haste Karma. Suppose my hand is moving. The hand will move by the conjunction or joining of my self. And Prayatna, the effort. Motion in hand is due to the conjunction of self and the effort. Motion in the hand is possible to the conjunction of self, willingness in self, and the effort, put effort. And there is an effort in the self, it is reflected as motion in the hand. The hand is moved. Tadha hasta samyoga acha musadeka. Suppose there is a stone. So the hand is moving and it has touched the stone. So the stone also moves. So tadha hasta samyoga, conjunction of hand on the stone. There is a motion in the stone. So now, adhigataje musalado karmani. Adhigatad musla samyogad hasteka. Due to the impact of hand on stone, of course the stone is moving, but he is also telling there is a movement in the hand also after the impact. What is that motion? That is the reaction. The hand will go back. Of course, in this case, the very light hook, but with a hard stone, it will not move so fast. Push hard, and there is a reaction. So he's talking of the reaction. Haste karma. Adhigatayat. The Musala Samyoga haste karma. So for every action, there is also an opposite reaction. This is the third law of Newton. Samyoga bhave gurutvat patanam. Everything atma karma hasta samyoga. So for example, if I am holding this stone, holding this book in my hand, because of the conjunction of the hand with stone or book, it is able to remain. Suppose I remove my hand, it will fall down on its own. It is free fall. So that's what is samyoga abhave gurutvat patanam. A stock down, fall, free fall, and there is no contact. Nodana Visesha Bhave, Orthanna Tiryakam. No motion, either upward or even downward, will be possible if there is no force, special force. So that means he is recognizing even the downfall is due to a force. Now he is explaining Prayatna Viseshat, Nodana Visesha. Greater effort leads to greater force. Nodana means force. And greater force leads to greater speed. Hit it fast, then it will move fast. Nodana Visesha, Udamana Visesha. Special speed or velocity or extra velocity is due to special force or extra force or higher. What is that extra velocity? Nothing but acceleration. So acceleration is proportional to force. That is the basic law of motion. Force is proportional to acceleration. Or acceleration is proportional. F is equal to ma. Ma is mass. So these are the laws of motion which I have established. And the other motions which are described here. Explosive motion, tadha dagdhasya vispotanam, and vibratory motion. Trunaya karma vayu samyoga. crystal motion, Manigamanam, magnetic needle motion, Suchya Visarpanam, iti Adrishtakarita, unseen force. Nodana Adhyavik Karma. Now the ballistic motion in the 8th chapter we'll study. Nodana Adhyavik Karma. Tat Karma Karita cha Samskara Utram Ka. Show Yogapat Sanyoga Adhyesha Karma. There is a bow and arrow. So the arrow is being released from the bow. Ishav Ayugapat Samyoga Visesha Karmanyatve. The bow is gradually released the arrow with special conjunction because of the motion. So when the motion takes place, Nodana Adhyavik Karma, the initial force, he calls it initial force. Nodana Adhyavik Karma. Motion is happening due to the initial force coming out of the arrow, bow on the arrow. That karma karitacha, having performed that motion, samskara, there is some kind of samskara, and because of that samskara, there is further motion, and further motion, and further motion, until samskara abhave gurutvat patam. So the motion will result in free fall when there is no more samskara. What is this samskara? It is nothing but kinetic energy. And what is this original motion? That is potential energy. Adhyavik karma. So the sutra, the motion of released arrow from a bow is being described. The initial motion of the arrow is due to the force of the bow on the arrow. That initial motion when performed causes samskara of motion. We can interpret this as a tendency or a trend or habit of motion. This results in further motion and so on. It is called kinetic energy in modern times. Samskara abhave gurutvat patram. So when we said samskara is no more there, is describing ballistic motion. When samskara no more is left out, it shall suffer a free fall due to gurutva. The word gravity in English comes from Greek word, which is a distortion of the word gurutva in Sanskrit. Now, motions in solids. Nodana abhighata samyoga cha prithiviyam karma. Motions in solids will happen due to an impact of a force, like on this stone, right? Or samyukta samyoga cha, by conjunction of some kind of chemical composition like gunpowder or explosive. It will be exploding. Prithiviyam karma, that is in solids. And what about liquid state motion? Apam samyoga bhave gurutvat patanam. Liquids, when they are held in some body, some plate or some bottle, if there is no such contact, they will fall, free fall, due to gurutva. Dravatvat syandanam. The liquidity, dravatva is liquidity. Due to liquidity, there will be viscous flow. Syandanam is viscous flow. And now evaporation. Nadyo vayu samyogad arohanam. Evaporation, like going arohanam is climbing up. Due to what? Vayu samyogad, by passing breeze or vayu, or nadyo, that means due to sunrise. Evaporation takes place due to either exposure to sunlight or due to contact with vayu, air, breeze or gas. Nodana apidanat samyukta samyogacha. And that evaporation can take place due to a force or due to removal of pressure. Apidana. What is this? It is nothing but Boyle's law. Nodana apidanat samyukta samyogacha. That is apam arohanam. Vrikshabhisarpanam. Now the next capillary motion of liquids in the tree from the bottom of the root to the top of the tree. That is vertical upward motion. Vriksha abhisarpanam iti adrishtakartam. Osmotic pressure, unseen force. Condensation and decomposition. Apam sanghato vilayanancha tejas samyoga. Any liquid, if it is applied energy, it will decompose and it will synthesize also due to energy. What happens to water in the clouds? How the rain is created? Hydrogen and oxygen are brought into conjunction to form water in the clouds, and during lightning, that is Vidyut. Now, Tatra Vispur Jaturlingam. The proof of that is lightning. Vispu means lightning. And it is also referred in the Veda, Vaidikancha. Where it is referred in the Veda, Garbhosya Oshadinam Garbho Vanaspatinam Bhutasya Vishwasya Agle Garbho Ahamasi. O Agni, you are in everything. You are in the womb of water. That means if you pass water, water will decompose. Apam Samyoga Vibhaga Stanait now. The formation of water. Liquids conjunction or synthesis or disjunction or decomposition takes place due to the Ganda. Stanait now. Electric discharge in the clouds. So friends, we have covered all the chapters up to 5th chapter, and in some other chapters there are references to yoga also. Atmani Atmanayo Samyoga Visheshat Atma Pratchaksham, and he has defined what is yoga. Yoga as Atmastha Yoga, being in self yoga, and is also referred to many other subjects other than physics. But I focused only on physics of Vaisesika. I finished my lecture. Thank you.
ధన్యవాదములండి. Thank you very much. Now let us have a question answer session. We have another 10 minutes. Anybody wants to ask any? Yeah, Pantul garu.
Gurugaru, namaskaram andi. Sir, I have two questions, sir. Not question, my doubt, sir. Sir, this is since the various branches of science and scientific words are very well discussed in our Vedas. The words which are discovered by Newton's law of gravitation, law of viscous motion, or movement of inertia, are very well described in our Vedas also. And like that, yoga is also have patent rights. Recently, UNY also recognized that one. Like that, this Vedic also can be claimed in sciences. We can claim our patents in these various branches of sciences.
Correct. But you see, what has happened is this Britishers, they made a very big conspiracy fraud on rejecting data and being silent on all knowledge before the English British based knowledge was expressed. They were trying to give a narrative that all sciences originated in England or near England, and people like Indians and others are fools who had to learn everything A to Z in all subjects. Only from Britishers, English, or at the most French or German. So this is the narrative they have created and they have popularized and they have established. It is a big fraud, it's a big conspiracy to deny the original truth of the knowledge being discovered in Vedas, Shastras, Darshans, much years, thousands of years before the Britishers or even Britain itself was created. This is a conspiracy fraud which they have been doing for hundreds of years. Since 1817, they have banned all education, every language other than English, for the same reason. As far as the patent rights are concerned, traditional knowledge cannot be patented. Patent is something which you have discovered newly on your own or invented. For example, if you have a wheel, you cannot patent it, it's already there. You cannot patent idli. You cannot patent the yogasanas. If anybody is patenting yoga, it is wrong. Fake. As per the patent laws, only new knowledge, new inventions can be patented, and that patent right will be valid only for 7 years. So this is traditional knowledge. In fact, in case of turmeric, when somebody was and neem tree, somebody was trying to patent, I think Indian government went and appealed, filed a petition showing the usage of turmeric and neem tree also in the Ayurvedic texts, which are traditional knowledge. So as a result of that, that particular patent was rejected because it is traditional. Nowadays, in the last few years, due to the social networks and other things, and a lot of people like me, like people like C.K. Raju, mathematics, they went on showing, and like Rama Subramaniam, they went on showing the existence of mathematics and other stuff. I am showing physics, this book. I am only concentrating on physics here. Nobody else showed physics. I am only one person. And Subhash Kak is a big man. He wrote some articles, and he wrote a foreword to my book. And, so mathematics, a lot of people are showing, a lot of books have been written. Other subjects like Ayurveda, to some extent, some people are showing. So as much as you show, so much will be the acceptance. Now, the Western scientists are silent. They are not saying, no, 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 only England started. They are not saying that. They are just silent. And sometimes they are admitting the new declarations by Indians on the original ownership of India on almost all the discoveries in science.
That one more, sir. Now this class, I understood that as long as Atma is in our body, we can take breath and we have all other digestive characters and everything. So any human body, as long as prana exists, all these actions will take place. So whether the prana and Atma are both one and the same?
No, they are not, because mind minus is also there. So in the Vaisesika, he didn't talk about prana at all. Whereas prana is talked in the Yoga Darshana. I say in Patanjali Yoga Sutras also, and in Yoga Upanishads, and in the Taittiriya Upanishad we have studied the other day. Prana is one below mind. People below that is Anna. So in Vaiseshika, only mind and Atman are taught. So if the prana is not there, then obviously mind also will not be there and Atma is also not there for the Jiva. They are not talking of Paramatma. So as I told you in third chapter, Kanada said in Vaisesika that Vyavasthito Nana. In practice, there are multiple selves, many. But later in the seventh chapter, he accepts that though there are multiple selves in practice, the nature of the self is only one. Tattva, Atma Tattva is only one. So that also he has mentioned at one point. So the subject matter is different. Do not talk about Manas. Talk about only Manas and Atma. Next.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Anybody else wants to ask any? It looks it is more scientific, so no questions. Physics of Vaiseshika. You can ask any questions related to that. Okay. If there are no questions, then we will go for Prarthana. After that, Janganmana. I request Padma Garu. To chant Prarthana, please.
Okay. स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्तां न्यायेन मार्गेण महीं महिषा गोब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु काले वर्षतु पर्जन्यः पृथिवी सस्यशालिनी देशोऽयं क्षोभरहितो ब्राह्मणाः सन्तु निर्भयाः अपुत्राः पुत्रिणः सन्तु पौत्रिणः अथनाः सदनाः सन्तु जीवन्तु शरदां शतम् सत्यं वद धर्मं चर स्वाध्यायान्मा प्रमदः मातृदेवो भव पितृदेवो भव आचार्यदेवो भव अतिथि देवो भव। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते, पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। सर्वे जनाः सुखिनो भवन्तु। स्वस्ति।
ధన్యవాదములండి. గుడ్, ఉత్తమం. Now I request all of you, while the chanting is going on, all of you unmute your videos and then chant along with the chanter. Now we will go for Janaganamana. Challa Chittibabu garu.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा। विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा। तव शुभ नामे जागे, तव शुभ आशीष मांगे। गाहे तव जय गाथा, जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे। जय हिंद, जय हिंद, जय हिंद।
ధన్యవాదములండి. చల్లా చిట్టిబాబు గారు.